We continue our look back at TNA in the year 2006, 20 years later. And folks, I regret to inform you that the numbers in fact do lie, but that means there will be no disaster for us this week here at TNA Sacrifice 2006, aka Tribal Tattoo Edition, aka Global Turmoil. This show drew 900 folks in the Impact Zone, about 25,000 pay-per-view buys. It is down by nearly half of the numbers from last month's Lockdown pay-per-view, which I guess, you could partly chalk that up to the fact it's kind of a boring build for an underwhelming looking card, but also the fans clearly want cages. And I think of all the ways it seems that TNA is really not caring about this particular show, it says it right away in the opening hype package. It's the same kind of Barry Scott narrated video, which I feel you could swap out with most any other opening hype package to a TNA pay-per-view during this time, where he just goes, "Of all the men who have ever done the thing, these men are the best and brightest to ever do the thing." And it's just, and they tie in Sacrifice to it at the end, and that's about it. We open up with the final second round match of the World X Cup, and we first see the points total so far on the full screen graphic. USA is up by 3 points. Japan and Canada still need to get on the board. And what are we doing with all this dead space, guys? Your opening matchup sees the man, Jushin Thunder Liger, the ultimate opening match wrestler, taking on Petey Williams, the captains of Team Japan and Canada, respectively. The matches on TV leading up to this, between, Lockdown and this show, have been fine, I guess. The World X Cup to me is just kind of like another excuse to have some X Division style matches, but they don't really seem to go anywhere. We certainly don't learn much more about these individuals in the short time that we see them on screen. And I think the most damning thing is that it doesn't seem to be that there's any incentive to win this competition. Oh, they win the World X Cup. Okay, so, by the way, Liger coming out with members of his group, the CTU, the Control Terrorism Unit. There's the feeling out process, but the action picks up fast. Liger hitting that dive off the top rope. The Team Japan members kick Petey's ass on the outside, which is a bit of an ironic twist to befall the heel who has constantly benefited from this exact same tactic. I don't think the live crowd really knows how to respond to this. It's kind of weird, because you want to cheer for anyone but, Team Canada and Liger. You can't help but cheer for him, but oh, what, okay. We get a lovely surfboard stretch by Liger. We get some split chants from the crowd. Williams ducks the Shote palm strike attempt, starts to make a big comeback. He sets up for the Canadian Destroyer, but Liger fights out. He hits the palm strike, a running Liger bomb. We get a kick out. Suddenly we see Minoru get up on the apron. Why does he wear a mask now? Hiroki Goto with the low blow, the very unnecessary shoulder roll, and then the exit. Liger hits another big move and takes out Williams for the win. What a strange visual to see Petey get beaten down and draped with the Japan flag. Damn, dog, how does that feel? Team Japan is responsible 2 pay-per-views in a row now for getting one of the biggest pops out of me and watching the show for doing practically nothing. So I'll give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I think it was okay. I would have really loved for them to have a little bit more time in the matchup to see what they could do. I think the match was getting cut off or coming to the end just before it could really blossom, I feel. Again, very strange to see Petey get his ass beat by the same kind of gang tactics that Team Canada is so well known for. I read that apparently the finish going into it was Liger was going to win clean, but then partway through the match itself, I guess Liger changed the finish. I'm not entirely sure why. It might explain or might factor in a little bit to what happens a little bit later in the show, though. We get a look outside Sting's dressing room. Meanwhile, his tag team partner, Samoa Joe, prepares in his very dark locker room. Elsewhere, Jeremy Borash in the promo zone with America's Most Wanted, Gail Kim, and weepy Jackie Gayda. JB wants to know what's going on with Jackie, but then Chris Harris cuts her off. He's like, "Shut up, Jackie." But why keep bringing her out for these interview segments if she's clearly in no condition to be in front of a camera? He says he's sick of 2 guys jumping together and getting title shots right out the gate. And around this time, this is where I'm first noticing this on my version of the show. I'm watching this back on YouTube. I don't know if it was like this live on pay-per-view. If anyone can confirm this with me, that'd be great. But it was at this point in the show, I'm playing it back. I notice, oh, Spanish, 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 Spanish. This undercurrent of Spanish commentary being played just a little bit below.
The fallen angel Christopher Daniels. Gals are barred from ringside.
Jumping together, getting a title shot, and thinking that you can take down the best. Tonight.
It is like this the entire show. You really notice it during the promos, a little bit during the entrances themselves, and not so much at all during the matches because there's all this other ambient noise. But no, you get the Spanish commentary like at 75%, maybe 60% volume to the main commentary audio. And during the promos, they're just trying to translate what is being said into Spanish. And I don't know about you guys, but when you're watching a show and you hear two languages at once, that for the entirety of the show, 3 hours long, that can be pretty fucking annoying. So James Storm steps in and says AJ Styles didn't get the job done at Lockdown, that whole spot with the splash on the table and the roof, because he's still breathing and drinking. And he gets kind of rough on Jackie and tells her not to cost him any more matches. And then Jeremy Borash steps in and goes, Jackie, seriously, you've been crying for like 4 weeks. What's the deal here? And then finally she reveals that she's pregnant. And the heels, of course, are disgusted by this news and they storm off. Gail cannot believe this and is like, nobody likes you, you're fired. And I'm like, wow, I'm pretty sure you cannot do that. I think Dawn Marie took WWE to court very recently around this time for that very reason. But anyway, that was the end of Jackie Gayda's time in TNA. That was the last you saw her, crying and weeping because she's pregnant, and then you never see her again. Wow, weren't those months of build and conspiracy and like, ooh, hidden tapes and I got this dirt on you and I'm gonna reveal it, but all that just in a puff of smoke, it is gone because Jackie is, for reals, she is pregonate, so she's gonna be gone. She and Charlie Haas are gonna have a kid together, great for them, but it's like, okay, well, that's all months of storytelling totally wiped out because you've written off this woman and you never had a reveal for what any of it meant. Lol TNA! Up next for the NWA World Tag Team titles, America's Most Wanted defend against AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, the hot new tandem on the block in TNA. These longtime X Division rivals going tooth and nail against each other over the title for so long. Of course, then they got caught up in the business with Samoa Joe. And then after all that died down, it appears that AJ and Chris have reached kind of a mutual respect for each other. And now they decided, well, heck, we've conquered the X Division and now we want to pursue tag team gold. And there they are now as a new tag team. Here we go. And you know what? I will appreciate their commitment to the bit, wearing matching gear. Not every tag team does that. And don't worry, everyone. For this match, the ladies are barred from ringside. Wink. They're definitely not going to be around the ring area for this matchup. Wink, wink. The challengers are off to a hot start. Daniels even slams Storm on top of Harris. Knock, knock. Who's there? It's a poke in the eye, and that's how AMW regains the momentum. The Fallen Angel spent a lot of time getting worn down in the ring, but he manages to be evasive at just the right time, makes a big tag to AJ, and then he tags himself back in like 20 seconds later. I've always loved that psychology in tag matches where like the guy who takes the heat, he does the hot tag, and then like less than 30 seconds will tag themselves back in for a spot. I'm like, what was the point for all that drama and the fans like begging you to make that tag when you're like, I'm back in, my ass has been unkicked and I'm ready to go. AJ and Daniels try a Pele kick Death Valley driver combo, but AJ just misses his part. Styles gets back in the ring with a big diving double clothesline. He's hit with a double team move, but he kicks out. They had a BME and a frog splash on Storm. Somehow that's not enough. We get this collision with Daniels and Harris. The referee's caught in the crossfire. They all go tumbling out. Suddenly, someone has thrown a nightstick into the ring, but from where? The rafters, of course. Oh, there's Gail Kim up there. So sneaky with that loophole. AJ hits Storm with the Styles Clash, but is dinked from behind with the nightstick by Harris. The pin and the win for AMW. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I really loved the athleticism and the pacing of this matchup. I thought it was a good story. I do find it annoying when the heels do the loophole to get around a stipulation like this, but I am also glad that TNA refrained from like pulling the trigger on putting the belts on Styles and Daniels immediately. It is very anti-WWE of them to do that, and I appreciate them for not giving two singles guys a tag reign immediately. JB is backstage with A1, Coach D'Amore, and Larry Zbyszko, and Lair Bear says all his problems seem to show up once Raven came back, and he says, Coach D'Amore tells me you're the man for the job, right kid? And A1 goes, right on, Barry, duh. In walks Slick Johnson, who also calls Larry Barry, and says, we're going to find out the new face of TNA management at Slammiversary. Why are they waiting that long? They hinted at this at Lockdown, and they've been giving us these little breadcrumbs every week, and they're gonna give us another month to wait? Good Lord, TNA sure knows how to stretch out storylines. Look, I think most of us know who this person is that they're gonna reveal. I just hope they don't get pregnant before the reveal. So then Slick begins to name drop some possibilities of who the new authority figure could be. He's like, how about Roddy Piper? No, I'm just kidding. How about Vince Russo? No, I'm just kidding. How about the Ultimate Warrior? No, I'm just kidding. And that's pretty much it. And Zbyszko's like, get out of here. Like, I feel like TNA, their whole business model for a number of years was them literally just like saying a name, holding a thumb up and going, just get public opinion on if they should bring these people in. So up next, making his in-ring return to pay-per-view, Raven takes on A1 of Team Canada. So as we established back at Lockdown, Larry Zbyszko, feeling the pressure of the newfound probation he is under by TNA management, he wants some help from Scott D'Amore. So D'Amore says, you got to give A1 a chance if you want any help from Team Canada. So Zbyszko comes out with A1. He grabs a chair and just sits in the ring for the longest time. Raven comes to the ring. He actually makes his entrance coming in from the back of the fan risers. He gets in the ring. He and Zbyszko face off for a second. Then A1 throws the chair at Raven. We get some stomps by Zbyszko as the match begins. Larry goes and joins the commentary team as A1 works over Raven. And Zbyszko on commentary claiming there's a conspiracy against him. I really would love it if TNA could go like a week without somebody talking about a damn conspiracy. Raven finally wakes up. He turns things around. He does this backstabber to A1, and ooh, that looked like shit. Larry Zbyszko gets on the apron with a distraction, allowing A1 to hit a low blow. Larry holds Raven up, but the double team backfires. Raven effect DDT on A1 to win. Then after the bell, Larry's on the mic. He says he's had enough, and he calls him to come to the ring right now. Where is Larry getting this bravery from? Like last month, he was doing everything he could to run from this guy. But anyway, now we have this pull-apart brawl between the two of them, between Raven and Zbyszko. A dozen security members are getting involved. TNA, TNA. I give the match itself 1.5 stars out of 5. Not a great return to form for Raven here, but you know what? Sacrificial lamb and A1, it's not going to hurt him any. I don't know if I'd like babyface constantly feeding to heels Raven. I like Raven as a heel so much better. But at least Zbyszko, like I said, it's a weird turnaround for him to suddenly be so bold and like, I'm going to fight Raven now, when it was the opposite, like a polar opposite, just like a week or two ago. But I think that is a better, it's like, come on, Zbyszko's a shooter, like he's a wrestler. JB is backstage with Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner. Jeremy mentions the recent game of one-upsmanship. How about it, Jeff? And Jarrett disagrees with the assessment. He says Sting played Howie Mandel for 3 weeks. He could have gotten someone from the outside like Liger or Bagwell. Hey, or Rick Steiner. Ho. But they would have gotten run out by TNA anyway because it's moved past them. He says that Sting was desperate for a partner by getting somebody from inside the organization, which is a very strange way of putting it. And then he wraps it up by planting the seed of doubt. Ooh, Sting can't trust Samoa Joe. Oh, that's the same damn thing you said about Christian Cage. I wonder if that's going to work out this time.
Sting, you know when people make mistakes around me, they get hurt. See, Sting, you made the mistake of picking Samoa Joe as your partner. Samoa Joe, you made the mistake of thinking you could wrestle outside the X Division. Samoa Joe, you're not going to kill nobody. The simple fact is, you're not man enough to go one-on-one with the man with the largest arm in the world. Samoa Joe, tonight, I've got the diction. Your winning streak comes to an end.
How refreshing it must be to listen to this Scott Steiner promo, him cutting on Samoa Joe and not immediately going to the fat asses yet. Up next, Bibbidi Bobbidi Roode takes on Riggedy Rhino in one-on-one action. Hey, remember when Rhino went on that whole mission to go after Team Canada one by one, ultimately ending with Scott D'Amore? Well, that didn't happen for a while because, according to storyline, D'Amore sicked James Mitchell and Abyss on Rhino, which is why we had that entire program for the last 3 months. So Rhino is finally back on his original mission to go after Team Canada. Rhino looks very strong in the early going, fighting on the outside and back in. Rhino goes up top, but Scott D'Amore distracts, and that allows Roode to take over by knocking Rhino out of the ring. Coach D'Amore really lays it in on the outside. Roode works the neck, the surgically repaired neck, just toying with his opponent at one point. Every time Rhino tries to fight back, Bobby's got the answers. Bobby is getting frustrated though. He wants to use the flag at one point. Rhino ducks the Northern Lariat. He starts to fight back. Coach D'Amore comes in. He wants to crack the hockey stick over Rhino's back, but of course, the big man, he no-sells it. He turns around to D'Amore, but that was the fatal flaw. He gets hit with the Northern Lariat from behind. Roode with the pin and the win. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was a fine match. Really feels like this could have been on television because this felt like the same kind of Team Canada, Scott D'Amore cost the guy the match sort of thing we've seen before, especially here on pay-per-view, no less, over the last few months. It was a simple match. It was executed very well, so I'll give it that much. And I don't know what their game plan is with having Rhino losing as much as he is lately, but I imagine it's not going to hurt him as much losing as it will benefit Bobby Roode for when he wins. JB in the promo zone with Team 3D, who are taking on the James Gang tonight, and Brother Ray starts out by saying, there are some dates you just never forget. I'll never forget where I was on 9/11. I'll never forget where I was, when Bush got reelected or when OJ got acquitted. And then Devon starts to interject and Bully just goes, he definitely killed that white girl. You know it, man. Like these promos where they just kind of get into random arguments about non sequitur stuff. It's like, I don't know if these guys can, I don't know if these are the guys I want handling that kind of humor. But anyway, Brother Ray continues by saying he remembers where they were on February 27th, 2000. They were in Hartford, Connecticut, holding their first WWE Tag Team titles. On that night, the team formerly known as the Dudley Boys beat the team formerly known as the New Age Outlaws. Fast forward to tonight in Orlando, Florida. History has a weird way of repeating itself, and tonight Team 3D beats the James Gang for the second time. Well, for the first time in 6 years and the second time ever, these two legendary tag teams will be facing off in a fight all about respect. And I'm pretty sure unofficially this is for #1 contendership for the tag titles. Anyway, the big build for this matchup has been, remember No Way Out 2000? Because that was the last time these two teams faced off. That was the Dudley Boys' first tag title win in the company, and they make a big deal of the fact they used the lead pipe in that matchup to help win the match and the titles. And that was what they did to write off Billy Gunn for his shoulder surgery. And that was what split up the Outlaws effectively for a very long time. I'm not at all against them using past from other promotions for their story. I think that's very cool that they mentioned that. I wish that they had done other things in the story besides constantly bring that up. I feel they could have built more tension between the two teams than just bringing up that 6-year story over and over again. The James Gang comes out. BG has the mic and says he doesn't have as good a memory as Bubba, but then again, he's not a mark who remembers his win-loss record. Okay then, that feels like a bit of a pointed comment. Also, I wonder if that line is an offshoot of the famous Road Dogg booking philosophy of wins and losses don't matter. And he says it took you a 4-foot lead pipe to beat us, but that won't happen again. Then he does his spiel. Back and forth between Devin and Kip. Bubba and BG trading arm drags. Kip hits a drop kick. BG hits a drop kick. Bully hits a drop kick. A couple minutes later, Devon gives BG a case of the ring postitis and Team 3D takes over. BG avoids a corner attack from Ray. He lays out Devon, gets the hot tag to Kip. He's on a roll for a bit, but then we get all 4 men in the ring. Corner punches, but Kip is laid out on the steps, setting BG up for a doomsday device, but BG kicks out. Haha, fuck you, LOD. 2D. They're setting up for the 3D, but then BG has the lead pipe. He pulls it out from under the ring, decks Devon with it with the ref's back turned. The cover and the win for the James gang. They finally got their win back, y'all. I give it 2 stars out of 5. Hey, this was one of the better matches from either or both of these teams I've seen in a minute here covering TNA. Man, watching Bully Ray hit a drop kick, I'm trying to think about what I felt or, what the closest memory I had to something like that. Must have been when I saw Kane do an enziguri for the first time. JB is in the spooky zone with Father James Mitchell and Abyss, and just moments ago, they finally relinquished the NWA title belt for it to be hung above the ring in tonight's main event.
Christian Cage, last month at Lockdown, this weapon of mass destruction, Abyss, left you hanging like a pig in a slaughterhouse and took the NWA Championship belt out of your hands. No wonder you said you're prepared to die. You have nothing to live for.
And he says once Abyss is through with you, he will give the signal and he will complete the death wish that you are on. He will black hole slam you through one final table,
the one awaiting you in the morgue.
Great promo. They show a replay of the finish from the opening matchup with Liger and Williams. They say there were some satellite issues during the opening match, so they decided to just re-air it. And that leads into our next matchup. It is the finals of the World X Cup. It is the Gauntlet match. And you know what? Considering what the scoreboard looks like, they say it's still anyone's ball game for this matchup here. Christy Hemme, TNA's newest knockout, is here again, and she will present the trophy to the winner. We begin with Minoru from Team Japan going against Team Mexico's Puma, who again is the future TJ Perkins. And the rules for this, it is Rumble style. People come in, they get eliminated over the top rope until it comes down to the final 2 when it is pinfall or submission. A rule that Minoru seems to forget early on. Up next is Petey Williams. He comes in and at first it looks like he wants to work with Minoru, who helped screw him over earlier, but it turns out he was just tricking them. And the fact the announcers were really befuddled by that and totally caught off guard, that to me seems that it's more evidence to me for the theory that Liger changed the finish of that first match. 'Cause they probably still had that whole sequence planned out for this gauntlet and then just didn't change it. Chris Sabin shows up next. We now have a representative for every team in there. Sabin's a house of fire. Hiroki Goto comes out next. Why does it sound like his theme is the varsity clubs?
Definitely not on the side.
Up next, Incognito from Team Mexico starts off with some crazy big offense. Johnny Devine, the most useless member of Team Canada, is in here now. Sanjay Dutt's in for Team USA. He dives into action. He hits Devine with a poison Rana. The fans are loving it. Incognito looks like he's gonna throw Sabin out, but then he's like, nah. Black Tiger comes in. He hits Petey with a victory roll into an ankle lock, sweet as Azúcar. Never mind that shit. Here comes Magno. God, he is all over the place. The cameras can't even follow what's going on with these luchadors on the outside. Eric Young has entered the chat to massive approval from the Impact Zone. Incognito and Dutt both go over the top and they're out. Dutt appears to have injured his ankle. Out next is Alex Shelley. Devine eliminates Sabin, but then Shelley takes out Devine. Jushin Liger comes out next, and just as he's taking out Magno, the camera cuts to Shocker making his way to the ring. Black Tiger tries doing some springboard stuff, but Shocker has none of that and he's out. Tyson Dukes, well, forget what I said earlier about Johnny Devine. Goto is out. The final entrant, Jay Lethal, comes out for Team USA. He eliminates Minoru. Shocker goes for the running nothing and gets eliminated. We are ultimately down to 2 guys from Team USA, 1 for Mexico, 1 for Canada. Shelley throws himself out basically. Lethal saves himself, then is immediately kicked out. Petey hits the Destroyer pretty quick afterward and pins to win the gauntlet. And with the Canadians getting 5 points at the very end, that ends in a tie between them and Team USA. And the announcers seem very befuddled by this. They don't know what to do in the event of a tie. And boy, you'd think that somebody in the upper brass would have figured out what to do if something like that happens. But oh my God, what's Kevin Nash doing at the Impact Zone? He walks into the ring, he picks up Puma, hits him with a jackknife and a boot. He gets a mic and he says, looks like somebody pissed me off to get me here on Mother's Day. And he says, I don't know who any of these guys are, any of these losers in the gauntlet match. And he reiterates what he's been saying on TV lately in interviews where he says, a mediocre big man can beat any of these X Division athletes any given day of the week. And then he says size does matter, and he does oppose. Okay, couple things. I'm going to give the Gauntlet match itself 3 stars out of 5. I think it was a nice little bit of excitement, Rumble style, X Division put it together. It's pretty neat, and so that was fine. And then Kevin Nash, he shows up like they were teasing on TV last week. He's come here to confront the X Division. He's going to work with them, and things are going to get really interesting, I feel, in the next few months. But even back then, even with the power of hindsight, I'm going into this with a lot of trepidation because I still remember what happened when Kevin Nash worked with cruiserweights in WCW. His feud with Rey Mysterio, I think, comes to mind. And so knowing Nash and his history at this point for being very selfish when it comes to who he puts over and how he puts people over historically, kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. What is going to happen when he is going up against a bunch of other wrestlers or working with all these wrestlers who barely come up to half his height? It just feels like there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this storyline as we are going into it. And again, we kind of know where it's going and things are going to be funny, but is it going to be good? That's what we're going to have to determine as we go along and watch this. JB is backstage with X Division champion Samoa Joe, and he asks, are the rumors true? Have you and Sting even talked to each other today? Joe says he's just here to do a task, and he doesn't have to hold hands and say kumbaya to kick somebody's ass. And he says, Jarrett, you call yourself the king of the mountain, but you're overdue for somebody to knock you off your perch. As far as Scott Steiner goes, I'm going to make my reputation by ruining yours. Good promo by Joe here, and I just love that, we've got the carousel of tag team partners for Sting, cutting the pre-match promo for him. Continuing on here as we go to our next match, the semi-main event, the odd couple of Samoa Joe and Sting taking on Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner. So the war between the Stinger and Planet Jarrett continues here in the Impact Zone, and so the match was made, tag team match, Steiner and Jarrett versus Sting and a partner of his choosing. And so for the last 3 weeks leading up to the show, Sting has brought the baddies out and he's like, we're going to play kind of a guessing game. It's let's make a deal. And so on the first week, Sting's like, you can pick a wrestler between either of these 2 tunnels. And if you pick either of them, they'll be my tag team partner. But if you choose neither of them, then we get to do this next week, and you have to make a choice then. So the first week, Jeff Jarrett doesn't pick either guy. And it turns out, you missed out on picking Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell. That could have been scary. For more reasons, more than one reason, recreating that. Who the hell would have been excited for Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell in 2006? But it gets better, because the next week Sting is like, okay, you didn't pick either of those guys. Now I'm giving you one guy to choose. If you pick this one guy, then he's going to be my tag team partner. But if you don't choose him, then next week we're going to push this again, because we love to lead the fans along. So Jarrett says, no, we're not going to take the deal. And it turns out the man behind the curtain was Rick Steiner. That would have been interesting, kind of recreating, the Steiner brothers feud of '98 for all the good that was. Now let's get that 8 years later. Why not? Could have had it, but we didn't. But again, who in 2006 is like, oh, dang, we could have had Rick Steiner here show up in TNA. So then finally on the final week, Sting's like, okay, here's my guy, it's Samoa Joe. What a threat curve that is. Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell in 2006. Rick Steiner in 2006. Samoa Joe in his prime. But it is really cool Samoa Joe is getting put in this spot. It is really his first taste of upper echelon main event activity in TNA. A lot of fans felt that he was due for that, and so also kind of flirting with him as a babyface. You'll see how this pans out, but they are definitely testing the waters of babyface main event Samoa Joe. They are definitely experimenting with it here. But once again, the big story is, can Sting trust his partner? It's a tale as old as time. Sting is off to a very nice start against the heels, and he even dives onto both of them. Joe's tagged in for the first time. The crowd's really digging this. Steiner is the first to pop off a suplex to Joe. We get some more heat, another suplex. Jarrett helps out as well. Jarrett does the strut. He pays for it with the Uranagi. Joe tags in Sting, who's a house of fire, goes to the Scorpion Deathlock on Jarrett. Steiner Steiner stops him, so he puts one on Steiner. Jarrett kicks him off, and the baddies start to take over. We get the old hot tag fake out, and speaking of classics, how about this? Sting and Steiner collide. Sting sells it for a long time before finally bumping forward and headbutting Jarrett in the dick. Joe's tagged back in. He's on this big offensive flurry. Sting hits Jarrett with the Stinger splash, then he dives to the outside, and Scott just does not catch him at all. Like, that was a scary looking fall. Honestly, I cringed less at some of his scarier falls in AEW. Gail Kim puts Jarrett's foot on the ropes. Jarrett hits Le Stroke, but takes way too long to cover. Sting and Steiner brawl on the outside, and now Jarrett hopes to go for a super stroke, but Joe escapes, catches Jeff Jarrett, hits him with the Muscle Buster. Joe pins and wins. After the match, Sting puts his hand out. Joe has a think about it, and he accepts the handshake. Respect, respect, respect. Joe walks away, but Big Papa Pump blasts Sting from behind with a chair. The beating goes down. Joe seems oblivious to all of it, or is he? They El Kabong the Stinger. Joe turns around, thinks about doing something. Nah, he gone. Then finally, after being put in the recliner, Daniels, Rhino, and the James Gang all come to make the save for the Stinger. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I thought it was a good story, good work by everyone involved, and like I said, this is definitely the beginning of the Joe as the hero experiment. We saw them kind of pull it back right away. He's still very much selfish-minded. He was there to do a job, and he did it, so he thought about it. Like, again, testing the waters. I think when that turn eventually does officially happen, the fans are going to go nuts for it. Main event time. It's Full Metal Mayhem for the NWA World Title as Christian Cage defends against Abyss. This is basically, it's TLC, but it's with TNA's trademark on it, and they added chains as well. But TLCC doesn't really roll off the tongue as well, does it? And for this hype package, oh my God, the piano music is killing me. JB is in the promo zone with Christian Cage, who, it's so crazy to me the difference in demeanor between like last month and this, where Cage was like non-verbal. He was like strong, silent, ready to kill Abyss in that cage. And like since then, only worse things have happened. Like he hanged you in the cage by the chain, he stole your belt, and like, but now you're happy-go-lucky, you're funny again. In this promo, he says, it doesn't make you a champion because you stalked my wife. It doesn't make you a champion because you have a manager, aka Elvira, with a sex change. And it doesn't make you a champion by holding the belt. Ask Jeff Jarrett. He did that for 4 years. Oh!
And they said I didn't have any humor left, huh?
And he says, this is the match that I made famous. Tables, ladders, chairs. Yeah, and chains, I guess. I love this long shot of Abyss walking through the dark, foggy, like damp corridor on the way to the ring. Oh, very cool. And then you get this other shot of Christian making his way through the back. Really well done moment here by TNA. So the match begins. Christian starts out swinging, but Abyss's strikes are just too strong. Christian is at one point able to seesaw a ladder into Abyss's face, then they both tumble out of the ring. They fight their way into the crowd for a bit. Back in the ring, Abyss goes for a running attack, but gets nothing but ladder. I did like the way Abyss did running attacks in this matchup. Like, this was the second time he did it, and every time he kind of like revs himself up like he's doing a little like cartoon dance. He's like, ooh. I think some jerk is chanting boring at one point in the match, which this is definitely not. They set up a chair in the corner. Abyss tries to skin the cat. Cage takes him to Dick Kick City and then runs him into the chair. They tease it for a while, then Abyss finally suplexes Christian into a ladder in the corner. Abyss pulls out a lot of Chekhov's tables from under the ring, and then it feels like they're just chatting about something for a minute before they move on to the next spot. Cage puts Abyss on a ladder, goes for a splash, but gets nothing but steel. On the outside, they're fighting over the chain, and Abyss puts himself in perfect position to get strangled with it like he did to Christian last month. But Abyss yoinks him down. Christian falls through one of those tables on the outside. Ouch. Abyss is climbing the ladder, but Christian catches up to him. They're fighting on it, then they teeter over. Scary looking fall for Christian the way he hits those ropes. Sin Min hands Abyss the old tack sack, but Christian hits Abyss with the unprettier on the ladder. Now Mitchell is a sitting duck. Christian finally gets his revenge, slamming the manager onto the tacks. Christian then says "fuck you" to Abyss's head, sets him up on a table. He climbs the ladder, but instead of grabbing the belt, he goes all the way up top, hits a frog splash through Abyss and the table. Then he reclimbs the ladder, pulls down the belt to win, and retains the championship as the show goes off the air. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I don't think it quite measured up to the cage match they had the previous month, but this was still very satisfying, very cool for Christian to get that bit of revenge against not only Abyss, but also James Mitchell. Felt very definitive for him to win the way he did. Makes Christian look really strong as a champion. And boy, after a performance like that, I am very hopeful that the rest of the year is going to look really strong for Captain Charisma as world champ. That said, my grade for TNA Sacrifice 2006 is a C. This show to me feels like the safest or the most plain out of all the shows I've watched this year for TNA in 06. I felt half of this show could have gone on Impact. The title matches certainly held the show down. Tag title match, Full Metal Mayhem. I liked the World X Gauntlet match, even though I still don't understand the point of the World X Cup other than getting some international stars, some TV time. It just, for me, especially the audio issues were pervasive and unavoidable, and that is going to stick in my craw. And especially after a big stipulation-riddled show like Lockdown, to go from that to this very safe show is a big drop-off. I'm not saying every show needs to have a cage, but I think every show should try and be as full throttle as possible and have big hooks, have reasons to tune in. And some of these matches were not that. So the next time we look at TNA in 2006, a few weeks from now, we'll be looking at a King of the Mountain match for the NWA World Championship, and conspiracies abound. Plus, we finally find out who the new face of authority in TNA is when we visit Slammiversary 2006. But before that, we are going back to the WWF to 1996, a special anniversary for a very special, dare I say, pivotal show. We're going to review King of the Ring 1996. But what did you think of Sacrifice 06? And how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret. Hit the bell icon to get all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.